2018. How many books did you read?
I read 50 books.
50? 50?
Yeah.
The hell, man. Do you know how many kids? It doesn't count.
I have 0 children. That does help.
What kind of handicap do I get?
I mean, I think with kids, you can have any kind of handicap you want. Because, reading takes concentration, and children are famous for breaking concentration.
Do I get credit for the kiddie books that I read to them?
Oh, I don't see why not. I mean, you're still, consuming something new.
I have read countless books this year then.
There you
I don't even know the number of books that I've read. In actuality, I don't even know if you're interested in talking about children's literature, but it's really fascinating to look at how they're constructing these books.
I would love to talk about children's literature.
So what was your 50 books? Like, what would you say you concentrated your efforts on the most? Was it steampunk? Not steampunk. You're steampunk.
I am steampunk.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Did you stay within your genre?
A little bit. I mean, I read a lot of different things. I read a lot of work from my fellow indie authors because, always trying to support them. And I have an app called LibriVox, which is audiobooks, but they only have public domain audiobooks. So there was like a good number of classical literature in there and stuff like that. I went on a Jane Austen kick over the summer and read, I think, 3 or so of her books in a row. So yeah, whole mix of stuff. I read my first Agatha Christie.
Interesting. I'm only familiar with her through her fame, obviously, and Murder on the Orient Express, the movie that just gets constantly remade.
It is. It's like the one that I think everyone just seems to love.
Like one studio bought the rights for it, and they just trade it back and forth for a couple $1 million every so often.
Yeah. Although I like did you see the most recent one with Kenneth Branagh? Watched a
little bit of it. What did you think?
I liked it. I had an idea near the very end as to like what no spoilers, guys, don't worry. But I had an idea near the very end of like what the solution was. And I was really proud of myself. But I understand, because I've not actually read that one. I understand it's not super similar to the original book. Like there were some big differences, but I don't know what those differences were.
Are you supposed to read those type of books as a puzzle that you're supposed to be figuring out by the last page?
Yeah, figuring out like who done it, which by the way is one of my favorite games during like reading mystery novels. I really love trying to figure out who the murderer is
before the end of it. And if you can, do you feel disappointed or do you feel like a genius?
I always feel like a genius if I do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Even if it's like badly contrived. I read a really great book. I'm going to count this 2018 book. This was One Way. It was a science fiction novel about a corporation, which is a really great premise, sending prisoners to Mars to set up the base for NASA or whatever.
That sounds very cool.
Oh, it was so fast. It was so good, but so bad at the same time. It was so
really?
trashy.
Oh,
so I thought the plot all the way through was just so not. I saw it coming a million miles away, right?
Right.
And they did everything I thought they were going to do, but I'm still riveted. So I'm not sure.
So there were no surprises?
No surprises.
That's a shame. No
surprises.
Yeah.
There's another one coming out this next month, so I'm super excited about it. And that, I don't know. I mean, how do we segue into my ridiculous reading of that book?
We just started talking about awesome books and feeling smart.
Feeling smart, that's right. So that's right, feeling smart. So I felt like I was going, and I knew it was going to happen all the way through. You know what I mean? I just wasn't sure who was going to survive. I was very disappointed they start, what they did. I'd recommend it highly if I didn't already spoil it. Did I spoil it?
No, I don't think so.
Good.
I mean, I still have no idea what happened in the book other than these prisoners get sent to Mars to set up the base.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I like the guy. Can't remember his name though. LibriVox is recordings primarily, right?
Yeah, they're all audiobooks, and like I said, they're just public domain.
They're read by people too. They're like me and you, just reading the story. I find that so cool.
Yeah, and they do a great job. There are a couple of people on there where I'm like, dude, I hope that you're making a living at this because you're so good.
Yeah, there was one guy I listened to. He did a Burroughs story. I think it was Tarzan. And I swear to God, he's on a podcast I listen to regularly. I can't remember his name, though. He's a guest that's on occasionally. But
I think I remember hearing one of his episodes because he was talking about reading stories on his podcast. I can't remember his name either, though.
On my pod?
Yeah, on your podcast. I guess,
oh no, this is a guy who's on another podcast I listen to.
Okay,
fun.
Sorry.
No, I've never talked to anybody that's done Liverbox. Have you done one?
No, I haven't. I sometimes play with the idea of doing an audiobook because, you know, my husband, he's a musician. He's got the studio downstairs. We have the whole setup.
I was wondering where the connection was creatively between you two. I was disappointed when you told me that he like rejected reading all of your stuff. I was like, oh, it's horrible.
He doesn't reject it. He's, you know, just not a big reader. He just doesn't read really much of anything. Yeah, it's just like horrible. I said, I don't take it personally because he doesn't really read anyone.
I feel so bad for my wife. I feel so bad. I feel so bad for her. I make her do it anyway, even though I feel bad.
Right. You're like, you have to.
You have to. It's your job. You said you were going to.
Yeah.
Secretly.
So you know, I think everyone has different ways of being supportive. Like my older sister, who, by the way, I have a story about her. She and I are really close, and she's never read any of my books, but she helped me with a book event one day. And when I was away from the table, this guy came up and asked about the books, and she goes, you know, I have never read any of them, but here's what I've heard my sister saying all day long. And she sold the book on that.
That's interesting. Has she read anything of yours since?
No, it's not her cup of tea.
Are you going to BookCon again this year?
I wish I was, but no, I think that I'll probably do that every other year. So I think this will be my off year.
What are you doing instead?
I'm going to try to do DragonCon. The applications don't open up until February 1st. And then I'm going to apply and cross my fingers and my toes and all that. And hopefully I'll have a table there, but we'll have to wait and see.
That's Atlanta. That's like 5 hours away, isn't it? Something like that. It's not too far.
It's only 4. It's not bad.
Yeah. It's a drive through. That's horrible traffic.
Yeah. Atlanta's rough.
Yeah. So Liverbox, you wouldn't read?
I think I might if I found the right book and I felt confident. I tried reading my own books for a minute for an audiobook, and I don't feel like I did a great job. So
it's hard. I couldn't imagine myself doing it either. I've listened to some people who do it really well, a really good job. Chris Heron, who I did have on the podcast, he does a fantastic job. He's read a bunch of my stories, and the guy.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't listen though.
Yeah,
it's like agony. Have you had any of your stories read for you? Have you done the audiobook thing yet?
I have actually. I just released my book Raven's Cry on audio. I think it was about a month ago.
Cool.
And I'm trying a couple of different things. So for that one, you know, I went through Amazon and did the thing where you do like the royalty split. Mm-hmm. So and I met the voice actor for that actually at a different book show in Lexington, Kentucky. So, you know, we chatted and everything, and she bought a copy of the book and we ended up working together. And then eventually, I don't know exactly when, we're doing the production on my book Out of the Shadows, an audiobook for that. And I have a vocalist friend here in Nashville who I paid to do the reading for that. And so Mike is just doing the engineering on that, like I said, since he's got all the equipment and know-how and whatnot.
Mike is your husband.
Yeah, sorry, Mike the husband. So we're going to be going a slightly different route and just kind of comparing the two methods as to how that all goes. And once that's all done, I'm going to write a blog entry on my experience on both sides of it to try and, you know, help other people who might be interested in doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's impressive. There's a lot of bits and pieces there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like it's you're constantly manipulating it, or does it like one of those things where you just kind of push off and it kind of does its own thing?
As far as like the audiobooks or
creating it? Yeah, I mean the ultimate project that you're producing. Do you feel like you're manipulating it, or is the actor mainly the one that's producing the story for you at that point?
I think it's kind of working together. When I did, or rather this voice actor, woman by the name of Kathryn Billings, she did Raven's Cry for me. We worked together a lot. She asked me a lot of questions about, what does this character sound like? Kind of like, what are you going for with the main character? Because that one's told from first person point of view. So that character's voice was really important to the story. So we worked a lot together, and she would like put up a chapter. I would listen, give her any notes. And we kind of just went back and forth.
So, I mean, you did Jane Austen on Liverbox.
Yeah,
right?
I listened to that one. There's a reader on there by the name of Elizabeth Klett who does an amazing job. Oh my gosh, I love her readings.
So interesting. I mean, I guess there is so much literary interpretation on those works, right? I mean, they've been out for so long,
Right,
but
exactly.
the author is obviously not around to manipulate the final product.
True.
So you're kind of getting a scholarly interpretation of
Yeah,
what was
that's
intended
true.
on one of those recordings.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like Shakespeare, where some people will interpret this bit of this Shakespeare play in like a positive way, and I've seen it. I've seen like 5 productions of Romeo and Juliet, and everyone does it differently. For
A little bit,
instance,
right? And at the
yeah,
end, they both die anyway. Oh, sorry,
there is
spoiler.
that. Yeah, yeah. I feel like Romeo and Juliet, like pretty much everyone knows how that one turns
Okay,
out.
sure. Ooh, I wasn't sure. 500 years is the cutoff, or something like that.
Oh yeah, there's no telling. That's a hotly debated issue, I think, on the internet. When is it okay to do
Spoilers,
spoilers?
right? Do you have an opinion?
Yeah.
Are you
Um,
sensitive?
I'm not really. I personally am not very fussed unless it's a murder mystery where I'm trying to figure out who the killer is. But beyond that, like I'm not too fussed about it, but some people, are very funny. Like they don't want to know anything about it.
When
I
you're
feel
invested like
like
that, when you want to know whether or not you're right and you want to stack up the evidence why you're right, that's
exactly.
just the best feeling ever. I mean, that's why you
I
read.
know. You're like, I'm a genius.
And you said Agatha Christie gave that to you this year?
Yes. Although I will say I haven't figured out any of her books yet. I've since read 2 of her books, and both times I could not guess who the killer was. But I figured it out watching Murder on the Orient Express. And again, it might be different had I read the book rather than seeing the film. So yeah, I don't know.
Is it ambiguous? I mean, can you have a different telling of it and be a different person kill? I mean, I saw the movie. I wasn't really paying attention. I don't know what I was doing, but I remember the
Mhm.
end. And in the end, we're not going to tell. I don't know who the killer was, honestly, because I can't
Mhm.
remember. But I remember how they were kind of showing everybody potentially being the killer in various points of the movie, right? They were showing the modus operandi or whatever.
Are
This
you
is
still
how this
there?
guy could
Oh,
do.
there you
I
are.
am. Can you? Oh, you lost me.
Oh
I
yeah.
said. I said Latin words. Did you hear me say the Latin?
No, I didn't.
No. God darn it. I said modus operandi in conversation, and you missed it.
Oh man. Well, now I've heard you say it, so we're good.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to tiptoe around that answer just because I don't want to give anything away.
No, I'm
Um,
saying though, they did show various. They showed the murders being committed by
yeah.
various people throughout the plot, right?
Yes.
And you, as a reader, could go, "Damn it, that actually makes sense."
Right.
Whoever you thought up to that point, I don't know if the book works that way. Does the book work that way?
I think a lot of her books work that way, where like she kind of leads you down one path and you're like, oh, it's totally this person. And then it's like, no, wait, like some new piece of evidence comes to light. It can't be that person because they were doing this thing during the time that this piece of evidence is relevant or
And
something like that.
she creates
Yeah,
both scenes hypothetically, and
mhm,
then when she's disproven, she'll create the disproven scene as well.
exactly. Like she takes you in all of these different possible directions. And usually I found that her solutions are not just like it was this one person. Usually they're complex, like it was this one person, but there was like interference over here while these 2 people were doing this thing or whatever. Like it's never just straightforward, cut and dry. There was only one person involved.
Everybody
Like
knows something,
usually
right?
there's
It's a piece of a
yeah,
puzzle.
there's like influence from other characters in the solution.
When was she writing? Was it 20th century or was it 19th century?
It was early
20th.
19th
Nine,
century. No, it's
oh, really?
early 20th century, I believe.
Early 20th. Oh, we're gonna look this up now. Are you
Yeah,
sure?
because I looked at when I
Or
read The Mysterious Affair at Styles, I think it was set in like the 1920s.
1920s. Okay. She's
Yeah.
not still alive though.
No, she's dead. She's definitely dead.
Agatha Christie. You're gonna hear me mess up this name real quick because I cannot type at all
You're good.
anymore. Agatha Christie. She is still alive. No, she's not. Would it be funny? She was born 1890.
Whoo, she'd be a very elderly lady.
Yeah. I think there are no longer any 19th century people alive on this planet. They are
Are there
all
not?
deceased. Yep, they're all gone. The last one just died a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We're all 20th century or above at this point on this giant rock floating in space.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if we are in the age where some people who are alive today are going to live into the next, wait, am I saying this right? I'm trying to think. Into the next century.
Into the next century? Yeah, I think so, right? Because we're already 20 years into it, and that's like nothing. 80 years is nothing.
That's true.
My
If we have
children,
some babies, definitely, I would think.
my children could potentially live to the 21st century. Nope,
That is true.
22nd. No, 22nd century, right? Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I'm bad with, because you have to like go back a year and then you're like, wait, what is it? Which direction? I'm already bad with time zones, and I feel like the centuries are the same kind of way where you have to do a little bit of math.
I like playing around. I've been playing around with the idea of death being cured. Not that I've written anything, but I like the idea of it. So I always
Mhm.
gravitate to those type of articles of people curing things like Alzheimer's or heart disease or cancer or things like that. Things that
Mhm.
now we can die of since we're not being eaten by saber-toothed tigers.
Mhm. Let me ask you a question that kind of plays into your speculative fiction mind.
Sure.
If someone's, let's say, consciousness is downloaded into a computer, are they still alive? Like they don't have a physical body anymore besides whatever computer hardware there is. Are they
And
still alive?
it's the same kind of question as if I clone you, are you the clone, right? You're no
Mm.
longer the thing.
Mhm.
That's the consciousness because whatever you are that creates who you is dead. But now you've made
Right.
something else possible of being alive. You've just given it all the information, like genetics, right? In a way. In a
Mhm.
way, it's so crazy. We did 23andMe, me and my wife.
Oh,
And
yeah?
yeah, really fascinating. And it wasn't really fascinating for the reason that you would think. Like the information I got was fine, but
Okay.
I learned about DNA. And one of the things I learned about DNA is that being a man, I'm specifically given a gene by my father, who's given a gene by his father, and it just threw this whole. This might be ridiculous. Maybe it's a simple math problem I didn't do earlier in my life. I could back it up 800 generations of men that had this one gene and kept passing it down. So in a way, you are passing on your information to this computer program that becomes something.
Right.
That's it,
Hmm.
right? It's no longer that I wrote a story about this just recently. Got
Yeah?
rejected by Tor. But
Oh,
that
man.
was the exact story, as in this guy was trying to figure out the math of the consciousness of his former master, and he did, but it was a different thing. I
Mhm.
mean, the math of the person is different than the math of like how the thought processes work or something along those lines.
Right.
So
So, what are you gonna do with that
no,
story now that Tor has
I don't
rejected
know.
it?
I don't know. I'm afraid to go indie. I'm not brave enough to do it. Or maybe I'm too shallow to do it. I just want to have the option to sell it to somebody with a bigger audience than I can generate on my own. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because
That scares
indie
me
is
a
a
lot.
ton of work.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many different presses out there though that do speculative fiction, because I feel like speculative fiction is having like a moment right now.
We're really always kind of not popular, but everybody likes it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's interesting because you could pop an Andy Weir and he'll float to the top, or a Star Trek or a Star Wars.
Right.
But people aren't necessarily looking for that stuff at that time because there's tons of it out there, right? I mean, what's 1977? I could probably look it up. There's 20 science fiction movies that we don't know of
Oh, yeah.
that were out that one year, but we know Star Wars
Yeah.
because it popped.
You know, I saw a, this is getting slightly off subject. You know how Mystery Science Theater 3000 had a reboot?
That came back this year.
Yeah. So
So that counts for the subject matter. It's 2008.
on the
Teen.
first season of the reboot,
Oh, oh,
they
that
did a
doesn't count.
movie. Huh?
That doesn't count.
Oh, it
I'm
doesn't
joking.
count? Okay. Well, but it is funny because they had did a movie during, the first season of the reboot that was basically like it came out like right after Star Wars, and the studio was very clearly trying to do Star Wars, but without
Yeah.
actually doing Star Wars. And David
What was it
Hasselhoff
called?
has a small
Uh,
part in it, and they have like space laser swords and stuff, which of course they're not allowed to call lightsabers. And it's ridiculous. It's amazing.
I saw this movie. I know I did. It was probably called Kroll, or it was probably called Ice Pirates, or something ridiculous like that. I watched them
I
all.
I don't remember the title, but yeah, it's in the first season of the reboot, and it's insanely terrible.
So is Star Wars, right? Star Wars is a horrible movie too. If it hadn't have been for
No,
George
Star
Lucas's
Wars.
wife,
I feel like a
if
lot of
she hadn't have
people
been there,
feel like a lot of people look at least at the original three. The prequels are, totally up for debate, but I feel like people look at the original three and see it as like this is a well-made classic movie for the ages.
Totally. I would argue that the prequel is also the same thing. It defined the millennium, the beginning of the millennium, and the arguments that are being developed from the sequel trilogy that's happening now is just miraculous too. I like that now. There people are critics are kind of looking at this sequels and going, they're going too fast. You know, they should
Mm-hmm.
go a little bit slower. But it's interesting. I think my argument is that, what was her name? Marcia something, the editor of the original movie, George
Oh, wasn't
Lucas's
was that?
wife,
Yeah, I was gonna
Marcia
say George
Lucas.
Lucas's wife.
She's the one that created the whole voice that we have when we look at Star Wars, I think.
That's true. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
think originally before she got her hands on it, it was going to be a very different film, and then
very.
she got in there and did her editing magic, and it's this
It's my
legendary
favorite
piece of
thing. It's my
film
favorite
now that
thing,
we have.
and it sucks. Where is she? Where
I
is she? She's
don't
still
know.
out there,
I
not
don't keep up
editing.
with George Lucas's life, so I don't know if they got divorced or just what.
Yeah, divorced. He remarried somebody else, and she disappeared.
Well,
Who knows? I mean, she had points in Star Wars all this time, and she's a billionaire like George.
she might be. It's true.
She might, I have no clue, or she has no interest. I mean, I can imagine being married to George Lucas sucking. The guy's like 5 foot tall, right?
I have no idea.
Where's
He's actually somebody that like I don't know very much about.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, but Disney owns it now, so
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
don't
matter
know.
anymore. It's it's
Mhm.
still got that same kind of thing going on for it though. Those wipe cuts and the storytelling motifs that have been kind of trademarked by it. Um, and you can't duplicate it, right? I mean, I don't understand why Star Wars can do it, but anybody else can't. Going back to the
I wonder
mystery
if it's
science.
one of those things where like, if you know the rules, you know how to break them. And so they were able to do that, but now if anybody else does it, it's kind of not the same. You know how certain books will do that? They'll
You know,
break the rules and it works for them, but it doesn't work for other books.
what's really interesting about that though is they were young. They were kids.
Hmm.
They did like one movie before, two movies before that. They were
Yeah.
barely in the industry.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just him. It was like Brian De Palma and Coppola and a bunch of other of the big name directors of the 70s kind of just hanging out and going, okay, let's mess things up.
Hmm.
And your argument is they should already know the rules, right? But do they at that point to mess it up? Are they masters
I do not
or are
know.
they still novices?
Although I don't know. I genuinely don't know if they, had all the information and if they just got lucky or if these were intentional choices. I'm sure that somebody somewhere, because the Star Wars fandom is enormous. I'm sure somebody somewhere has like a deep like dissertation written on this, and they probably used it to graduate school or something like that. That's my theory. That's my totally unfounded, no knowledge theory.
But you're not a fan of Star Wars.
It's fine. I grew up on Star Trek, and I am a very big Star Trek fan. And I mean, I enjoy Star Wars, but I am not nearly as big a fan as probably 99% of the fandom.
What did we have in Star Trek in 2018?
Well, we had Star Trek Discovery,
Did that
which
come out in
unfortunately I
2018?
haven't seen because I
I
don't
haven't
want to
seen
pay
it.
for CBS's dumb subscription just for one show.
Yeah, I refuse to do that too. And I've seen a
Hmm.
bunch of Discovery, and
Hmm.
I don't know if I watched their Hugo nominated episode. I thought it was really well done.
Mm.
It's one of their time travel dealy bobs, but ultimately I didn't really like. I wanted the original Asian captain to continue on. I loved her. I was
Hmm.
very excited by that.
I've
I do.
not seen it. I don't know anything about
I
it other than the fact that it exists. I'm hoping it comes to Netflix because then I'll binge the crap out of it.
so irritating what's happening right now. I have no clue.
Hmm.
YouTube has got licensing issues and pulling people off for no reason whatsoever, and Star Trek is refusing the show on Netflix, even though Netflix paid for it, right?
I have
I
no
mean,
idea.
that's so crazy. Captain Picard's coming back.
I love him. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that man.
Kay's coming back. I mean, Jon Stewart and what's his name? Patrick Stewart's going to reclaim his role. How insane is that? That's
Oh,
the
is
20th
he? I
person.
did not know that.
Yeah, he's going to
That's
be
very
in
exciting. I have to look into this.
not this season, the following season, which I think will be out in
Oh.
December. It'll be Captain Picard. They're recording it now or filming it now.
And he'll look exactly the same as he did 30 years ago. Because that man does
He's
not age.
he looks old. If you get up close and personal with him, he looks a little bit like he's 70 something years old.
I feel like he's looked like he's 70 something for a really long time though.
You watch an episode of Next Generation, you'd be like, oh my god, that dude is so young. He was like in his 40s. He
Was
was like in his
he?
think so. I think he was like in his 40s during that period of his life. He's not very old.
Hmm.
Like compared to me, he's my age now or some crazy ridiculous thing.
Hmm.
No, not gonna. Yeah, he looks fantastic. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but he's also a multi-millionaire. Crazy.
Maybe I need to find a friend and see if they'll give me their login for CBS, whatever their streaming service is, and I can catch up.
Well, there are other places to go too, but you have to kind of be
There
set up
are.
for it.
That's true.
But I won't suggest. I mean, it is dangerous, right? I mean, you go to some websites and your computer just starts smoking and
That's the thing I worry about because I don't know
yeah.
enough about it to really be aware. Like, I know if somebody pops up and says, click here, don't click it. Like, I know that, but
Sometimes it doesn't matter because you've got to click there to close whatever ad they have in front of your whatever you're watching.
right.
I've had to reboot, not reboot, but redo computer after computer because of my
Oh.
refusal to do cable. I just don't like commercials. I just
Mhm.
don't like commercials at all. I hate it so much.
Yeah.
It just bothers me. Why are you showing me this? It doesn't make any sense to me that I have to watch this commercial.
I know what you mean. It's crazy because so my best friend is British, and over there, like they don't really have commercials during, at least on the BBC networks, they don't do adverts during the show. So like we were watching Doctor Who one year when we were visiting over there, and I think we wanted to get a snack or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, we'll go on a commercial, and my best friend Sally, she's like, yeah, no, there aren't commercials. We're gonna be waiting the whole show. It is amazing to me. And we don't watch them anymore. Like everything we watch now is on the DVR, and then you just fast forward past the commercials.
It's one of those things though too. Once you experience it, you don't want to fast forward through the commercials anymore because
Really?
you just want to sit there and passively watch the show that you want to watch.
Oh, yeah,
You don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
to you
Sorry,
don't
I
want to
was
search for the
like, who wants
remote
to
and
watch
like
commercials?
no, yeah, nobody wants to watch commercials
Yeah,
except during the Super Bowl. I'll watch a commercial during the Super Bowl, even though it's
yeah.
still
That's kind of the
irritating.
only time.
The only time. 2018 was the new Doctor Who too, right?
Yes. Have you seen it?
I'm still one Doctor behind. I have not finished the Matt Smith seasons. I'm still like 3 episodes finishing that last season and not watching any of the Capaldi yet.
Oh, okay. I don't know how much I want to say then because I'm in love with the new season and I don't want to ruin anything for you. But oh
I
my
hear it's
gosh, I'm so
different,
freaking
right?
happy.
It's
Sorry.
different. Is it tonally different?
Well, it is different because they have a new showrunner. Christian Ball has taken over. Stephen Moffat has left, and then we have a new
Oh,
doctor in the form of Jodie Whittaker. And I mean, it's the same show, but
yeah.
it's kind of doing some stuff. You know how for a while it was kind of monster of the week, so to speak.
Forever? I have never seen it. Well, they do have their I love when they have their arcs. There's
Yes,
several
the
episode
arcs
arcs,
are
yeah.
different from monster of the week.
Back in the day, Tom Baker's arcs used to be a whole season long,
Hmm.
which is really cool. They'd have like 6 episodes geared towards the same storyline.
Hmm. Yeah, and I will tell you, Capaldi's has a little bit of that, and the new season has a little bit of that. But in between, in the new season, they're also tackling some very relevant issues of today. Like they had an episode with Rosa Parks, which oh my gosh, it was so friggin' good. Again, I don't want to ruin anything for you. It's just so good.
All you're doing is whetting my appetite for Doctor Who. I
Hmm.
haven't had much of an appetite for Doctor Who. I don't know why. Matt Smith just wore me the flip out, I guess.
Really, he was my favorite for a while.
Really? What's his name? The one before him was my favorite. I really,
David Tennant.
yeah, I loved him. He's really
Yeah,
good.
he's pretty great.
And then Tom Baker, obviously. Be
Right.
Tom Baker and then Tennant, and then I don't know who I like.
I'll be
I really,
curious to hear what you think of Capaldi because like he eventually grew on me, but it was a real slow growth.
yeah. Unfortunately, you get flavored by the first one, no matter what.
Hmm.
Captain Kirk will always be William Shatner. I don't know who the hell this guy is, Wonder Woman or whatever. Chris
Hmm.
Pine, he should just retire. Do you
I,
feel like
I
that?
I I mean, retire from acting or just
No,
retire from
I
the
know I'm
films?
joking. I have no opinion about Chris Pine. I'm just saying about William
Oh, okay.
Shatner, the Captain Kirk situation as a hardcore Star Trek fan.
Hmm. I don't know because there's some things I really like about the reboot, and there's things where I'm like, really like the fact that we redid Wrath of Khan, and we might have talked about
Oh
this during
yeah,
one of our
I think
other
we did.
podcasts.
I think I
Like,
made the
why did we
exact
do
same
redo Wrath of
sound.
Khan?
Yeah, it was horrible, and they did
Hmm.
a bad job too. They didn't even do a good job. They
Hmm.
could have possibly set up a better movie for the third one with using like a lieutenant in place of Khan. Let
Hmm.
Cumberbatch be somebody not Khan. That would be great. Then lead us to this
Right.
place, this horrible place that we
Mhm.
have to work, this nightmare that he's going to lead us to. I mean, I just think that they fucked up so bad. It was so bad,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was
I like
really
I
bad.
said, there's some things that I like about it, and then there's some things where I'm like, dude, what do you do? Because and I remember specifically mentioning I feel like J.J. Abrams is a little bit big for his britches. So yeah, real mixed feelings on that.
Yeah, I don't know what they could do with it though. I mean, the Next Generation crew wasn't really doing good movies. They did one good movie.
They did a couple of really good ones.
You like First Contact, right?
First Contact, of course, was amazing.
For
Um,
Generations was good because it was like, yay, there's
mhm.
another Star Trek movie in the theaters for me anyway as an experience.
Yeah, and
But
you had the
beyond that,
crossover of Kirk and Picard together.
it was awesome. It was
Yeah,
yeah, you had a really there's a fun movie. They say it was shit, but for 20-year-old me or whatever, 18-year-old me, I think it was the best movie ever.
right.
Um, but beyond that, the other ones weren't that good. I don't think there were three more, right? And they were all
I'm trying to
kind of
think because
bad.
was it Insurrection? I think was one.
Insurrection,
Nemesis,
Nemesis.
and what's the other one?
Is that it?
Can't remember.
It's just two more, and they
I
both
didn't love
sucked.
Nemesis. That was not my favorite. I liked Insurrection pretty well, but yeah, Nemesis
But
was
as a Star
fine.
Trek fan, you have to appreciate them because they're Star Trek stories. So they have their
Right.
characters, and you're like, oh, great, this is fine. I don't care.
Hmm.
I went to the movies for every single one of them. I don't understand the every other conspiracy. I enjoy all the Star Trek films, but the
Hmm.
J.J. Abrams really do bother me a lot.
Right.
And the Discovery series that came out in 2018 kind of sits that way for me too. It just doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel right.
Mm. Speaking of sci-fi shows, Voltron ended in 2018.
That's the
The new
cartoon.
Voltron, yeah, and it's
I
really good.
did not see any of that. Or now, would you call that anime?
I think so. Like, I think I would call that anime. I don't know exactly what the definitions are, so this might be completely incorrect, and I apologize if it is incorrect. But
It's Korean though.
I would put it as anime.
I think my wife told me it was Korean the other day.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
I
And
don't
she
know.
says it's pretty exciting that there's a bunch of Korean type of culture like that coming into our country, like joining.
Correct.
She's American, but her parents are from Korea. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So yeah, but it's very good. I really like it too.
I think my kids watch it occasionally. I can't watch cartoons anymore. I don't know
Really?
why they just wash over me completely,
Hmm.
except for Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse,
I have
Spider-Verse.
not seen that one.
Ooh,
Is it
it's really
good?
good. Oh yeah, I brought my son to it. That was his first movie. He's been to like 5 movies his entire life. He's 3.5.
Hmm.
The Star Wars movie when it came out, 2000, what was it, 13,
I don't
15?
remember.
I don't remember either. My brain is gone.
Yeah.
And The Martian.
Right.
And then him and his sister have been having a horrible time sitting through movies. They just can't do it. They lose interest. They're like in the bathroom, screaming, running up and down the aisles. I
Hmm.
feel horrible for everybody in this theater. I'm so bad. I'm so embarrassed. Spider-Verse, he sat through the entire movie with minimal manipulation by my part. So
Interesting.
if that's not a credit to the movie, I don't know what is.
Maybe you should take them to see the new Mary Poppins because I have several young nieces and nephews, and they all sat through it very nicely.
That's the plan. Yeah,
Hmm.
we worry because my daughter does not like real people in her
Hmm.
shows.
Right.
She only likes cartoon
There
people.
are some very cartoony elements in
Oh, really?
that film, so
Did you
maybe
see it?
that'll help.
Did you see Mary Poppins?
Yeah, for
You like
my
it?
oldest nephews, there's a family.
What did you think?
I really liked it. I was really worried because the original is a classic. Um, I mean, how are you going to outdo Julie Andrews? Which I don't think actually looking at it, I don't think it outdid the original. I feel like it was very good on its own and like stands on its own merits. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
Was there an issue with not Julie Roberts? What the hell is her name? Julie
Julie
Andrews?
Andrews. No, there wasn't. I looked this up
There
because
wasn't.
she was
Okay,
not in it. I thought
she was
maybe
not
she,
in it.
you know. But no, apparently the production company called her, said, "Hey, how'd you feel about having a cameo in here?" Because Dick Van Dyke did,
He
and
did. Yeah, no, because he showed up right
hmm
before the movie released everywhere. Like all just gifs of him dancing and you
hmm
know scenes from his old sitcom just start popping up all over the place. Like, oh, he's in that Mary Poppins movie, isn't he?
yeah.
And lo and behold, there he is.
But Julie Andrews, queen of class that she is, she was like, you know what? No, I don't really want the focus to be on me because I mean, I don't think it's arrogant of her to say like people love her. because she's amazing.
She's a classic, yeah.
Yeah, so she was very classy about it. And she's like, I want this to be Emily's moment. I want the focus to be on Emily for Emily Blunt. And yeah, so she very gracefully bowed out of the opportunity.
It's crazy. It's Emily Blunt.
I love her.
It's the girl. It's the woman from what is it? What the hell was that movie called? The Tom Cruise movie.
Oh shoot, I know it.
Generation Kill? No. Live,
Something
Die,
like that.
Repeat?
I don't
Something
really
like
like
that.
Tom Cruise, so I didn't see that film. But
Oh
she
my
was
God.
in Devil Wears Prada. She was in A Quiet Place. She's been in a bunch of stuff.
This is really turning into a conversation about movies. So I
It
guess you
really
didn't
is.
you didn't see.
Do we want to get
talk over you before you say you don't like it. You didn't see Mission Impossible
Yeah,
this year when it
Tom
came out?
Cruise gets on my nerves.
Tom
I really
Cruise.
love Simon
That's
Pegg
good.
because he plays I think Q now.
Yeah, he does.
But
I don't know
I
Q.
I
don't know
don't
what his
care for
name
the
is.
films.
No?
No, they just don't do it for me. Although I will say the one, I don't remember which one it was, where he's like hanging off the side of the skyscraper. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that was on. That was a fantastic. I don't like them either. I don't want to see them, and then they get released and they get these really fantastic aggregates, and I'm like, oh god damn it!
Mm-hmm.
Why do people love this movie so much? And I have to go see it. And they're usually fun adventures that hardly ever stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't make you stop and think about the physics of what's happening. They make you think of eating your popcorn and just enjoying the experience. And I like that. You know what I mean? It's nice escapism. Tom Cruise does that. He never fails me except for the last Jack Reacher film.
I didn't see it.
That sucks so bad.
Mm-hmm.
What have you read this year? Because I know you did Jane Austen. I know you
Right.
have. Let's get on books. Let's talk about what you've read.
Okay,
Let's see if we match
the
up on
first
anything.
book I read last year was incredible. It reminds me so much of Douglas Adams. So the book is called Death, the Devil, and the Goldfish, and it's by a gent called Andrew Buckley. And it is hysterical. Like I said, it's really Douglas Adamsy, and you get to see the Grim Reaper doing some different stuff. Like it's very silly and fun,
Terry
but also
Pratchett
like
too.
well written. I'm sorry.
Terry Pratchett as well, kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that one I really love, and I like it.
This
Legit made me laugh out loud so many times.
This is an indie book?
It's not. I think maybe Quirk Books put it out.
Let me check this guy out. What's his name?
Andrew Buckley.
Andrew Buckley.
And the book is called Death, the Devil, and the Goldfish. So yeah, and it's so amusing. I absolutely loved it. I don't give 5 of
Andrew Buckley?
Yes.
Andy Buckley is an American actor. It's not the same guy.
Nope, not the same guy.
Not the same guy. My goodness. Why does it have to be difficult?
Because the internet is full of people.
I think everybody should have numbers, and then we just memorize.
917.
Exactly. It's binary code too. It's just a billion zeros and ones. What's the name of the book so I can look it up that way?
Death, the Devil, and the Goldfish.
Death, the Devil, and the Goldfish.
The devil accidentally possesses a cat and can't get out, which is also lots of fun in that book.
So interesting. So this book came out the 2012, so it's been out for a while.
It has, but I absolutely love it. I thought it was so funny, and for a while I was like, everyone, you should read this book. It's so funny.
Science Fiction Books gives it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads has it down at 3.9 out of 5. And you like that it was kind of Douglas Adamsy. Man, that's high praise. Honestly.
I know.
Douglas Adams.
Yeah, I mean, but if a book can make me laugh, you're probably doing pretty well, because I read my first Stephen King in 2018 at the very end. This is actually a really good bookend. Not my cup of tea. Like, I mean, you can see it in like the skeleton. The writing craft is excellent, but just the stories were just not for me personally. Like, they made me feel really depressed, and I needed a palate cleanser. Whereas this one made me laugh and made me just feel really good. So that's how what I look for in books.
You want to feel good.
Yeah.
I want to get sucked in.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to put the book down. You know what I mean? I just start so many dumb books. I mean, it's unbelievable. I went through the list of books that I read this year, and there's so few books that I read all the way through. Like, what was
how many books would you say you're in the middle of right now?
Oh my God, it's like 100 more than, because it goes back years. This is not like it's just a 2018 problem. This is my entire life problem.
Got it.
This is a brand new phone though.
Oh.
So I got this phone this year, I think. So the first book I downloaded and finished was Kings of the Wild. on January 29th, 2018.
I've heard some excellent things about that book.
Highly recommend it.
Because it's like
Fantastic.
fantasy, but like lots of like 80s. Is it 80s throwbacks or something like that?
Yeah, what he did was base it around like an 80s hair band. You know what I mean? Where you have like the lead
That's
singer
awesome.
and like I didn't get that when I read it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I actually talked to this author.
Oh, how cool.
I had the opportunity a few weeks ago, well, a couple months ago now. I'm so behind on publishing stuff, but Nicholas Ames was on my show, and I even told him I did not know. He's like, you're like one of the only few people who didn't. So it's obvious while you're reading it that it's about a hair band, and just skip past me completely. I thought it was about like role playing games. You know,
I kind of got, like, from what I've heard anyway, I kind of got that vibe too, because I think he was on a different podcast that I listened to. I think he was on Read, Write, Repeat, which I'm a really big fan of. And I think
like
there was talk of role
I
playing
like them
games.
because
I
of
can't
you, I think.
remember exactly.
What's that?
I said I think they talked about role playing games a little bit, but I can't remember if that's true. I might be making that part up.
He's a big role play gaming freak too. So it could have gone either way. You know what I mean? For me, it was role playing games, and maybe for other people too. He said the majority of people would get the music though. That was my first book this year, and I really want to read Andrew Buckley. I want to read Terry Pratchett. To tell you the absolute truth, I have not been able to get into him, and people that do make me jealous. So maybe I'm.
No, I mean, everyone has the books that they like and don't like. I mean, Stephen King is obviously incredibly well liked and was just not my cup of tea at all. So, everyone's got their thing.
1963, I think that was called, or something along those lines. It was a brilliant alternative history book about the assassination of JFK. Could not put it down. I mean, that's Stephen King. He wrote a zombie book called Cell, I think, something like that. It was I couldn't put it down. But sometimes I cannot stand his writing. And you're right, it does get dense and depressing.
And I think part of my problem anyway was it was a Night Shift, which was a collection of short stories. So just like sad ending, sad ending, sad ending, sad ending. Like it was just this cycle of sadness. And I was just like, okay, this is not working for me.
He still made millions of dollars off of that, though.
Oh, I know. And it's like, I mean, he's an incredible writer. Like I said, like I can see the craft, like the skeleton of the story, and it's brilliant. But just like, the other stuff, the artsy part of it, that's all open to interpretation and subjective, just not for me.
So Andrew Buckley, Stephen King, Jane Austen, Agatha Christie, who else we got?
Let's see here. So, like I said, I read a bunch of like my fellow indie authors and stuff, because again, I'm always trying to support them.
Let's break open some of these indie authors. Who was your favorite indie author this year that you read?
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard question. I don't know if it's fair to say
cut deep.
Like I haven't sat down and thought about that. But I did really enjoy Jennifer Rainey. She writes kind of like a steampunk paranormal series. So The Last Temptations of Iago Wick is her first one. And I really enjoyed it. It's got, the steampunk elements, which I'm fairly picky about. Like some people are like, I wrote a steampunk book, but it's like not really steampunk. Do you know what I mean? Like it lacks the elements that are
hard
steampunky.
though, right?
It is hard.
Picking your own genre, and as an engine in it with steam coming out of it, steampunk.
Right.
How do you classify steampunk? I mean, what about her work wasn't steampunk?
Oh no, it definitely was. Hers was.
Oh,
I've read other ones that I'm not going to name names that I didn't feel like were steampunk. But hers definitely were, and I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit difficult for me because so the main characters are demons, and they make horrible. It's really hard to connect with them. It's like you're a bad person because you're a demon and it's in your nature. But the action was really good. The characterization was really interesting because like the main character demon is like kind of questioning his place, because in this series, hell is kind of like a big corporation. Like you even have hints. Yeah, like where they're hiding behind their own policies when some of their demons get into sticky situations. They're like, per our policy, like we're not going to help you out with this.
Have you seen The Good Place?
I love The Good Place.
Yeah, me and my wife love it too. We love it so much. And it's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Afterlife, it's like a corporation.
Yes, exactly. So it kind of has that feel, and you see the demons kind of questioning their place in the hellish hierarchy. So that was kind of interesting. And of course, there's adventure, and they have to get themselves out of sticky situations and stuff. And a lot of like character agendas working off of each other. Like, this person over here has this goal, and it clashes with this person's goal and whatnot. And so I love that. And it was
Which
really
one
good.
of her books did you read?
I ended up reading 3 of her books. So I read the where is it? Sorry, I actually have my whole list of all the books I read last year in front of me. So The Last Temptations of Iago Wick was the first one. There's a short story called Iago Wick and the Vampire Queen, which had automatons in it, which was very cool.
That's cool.
And then Finding Dante Lovelace is the third one.
Do you write about automatons?
I have touched on it barely, but I haven't really gotten into it. It's one of those things that I kind of, you have your like list of ideas, like it's there on the list, but it hasn't made its way into my books yet.
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it? When you have an automaton type character, is it a character or is it just a thing?
Like I said, I haven't gotten there yet, so I'm not sure what it's going to be like. Is it going to be like Data from Star Trek, or is it going to be just lifeless? Yes, mistress, go off and do the thing that it's been told to do.
A billion years ago, somebody pressed a button and activated this thing, and it's just been surfing the universe. It's chaos the entire time based on the symmetrics of its design. I mean, you could have it like that, right? I mean, you can have a being so impressive that it could potentially program this automaton to navigate eons and eons of time with no issues.
Because if you do it from the standpoint of like, it's a computer, essentially, it has a job and it will stop at nothing to accomplish its task, because what else does it know? That could be really interesting.
Is it a computer? Because what I'm looking at, I'm thinking about, oh my God, there was a movie out not too long ago based in France. Sacha Baron Cohen was in it.
I don't know.
Oh my God. My brain, I think it's on fire. What the hell?
Oh,
no. But there was an automaton thing in the movie. It wasn't alive, obviously. It was just a prop they were using and trying to fix. It was a through line throughout. Is that what you're thinking of when you're talking about automaton? You're not talking about that, are you?
Like, I mean, I'm talking about in steampunk, it would be kind of like a very rudimentary cyborg kind of situation. I've seen some where like it's just like a little like machine that rolls around on the ground and for some reason has the ability to speak and perform tasks. So yeah, but I would say automatons are kind of like rudimentary cyborgs, at least in my mind. I'm sure different people have different definitions.
But they're mechanical, though. They're not necessarily a computer. I mean,
That's
it's
true.
like a
Cyborgs are
box,
also biological.
Right? Biological. They're part biological as well.
That's fair.
I don't know. I think I like the idea of a music box. We wind them up, and they just kind of work off of what the metal's doing inside them. So yeah, Jennifer Rainey. I like the idea of The Last Temptations of Iago Wick. Iago Wick.
Iago. So like Iago from what's the one? Shakespeare.
No,
Othello.
Yeah, Othello.
Yeah.
Excuse me. What else do we have this year? Indie-wise?
I read Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, which is a book on the craft of writing.
And nothing that came out this year necessarily, right? These are kind of been out for a little while, and you're just kind of floating through a list.
Well, I've got a few of those. So another one of my indie author friends, Beverly Lee, she came out with the third in her horror trilogy, which, by the way, this is an example of why you should try to branch out, because I am not a fan of horror. It's really not my cup of tea, but oh my gosh, I freaking love her book. So the third in her trilogy came out. It was the last one in The Making of Gabriel Davenport series. Oh my gosh, it was so freaking good. Oh, I love it so much. I was fortunate enough to be one of her ARC readers, and it was just brilliant. I loved it.
Oh, and she's indie. Are you friends with her?
Yes.
Through
Instagram.
Social media or what? Instagram. Yeah, you have that, right? Bookagram. What is it called?
Bookstagram.
Bookstagram.
Bookstagram. I like Instabook though. But yeah, the community is generally referred to as Bookstagram.
And you read Shifting in the Shadows. What is that one?
So it's The Making of Gabriel Davenport series. And the third book in the series is called The Purity of Crimson.
It's about an angel?
It's actually about vampires.
Oh, is it really? They have wings.
Yes. I know. And I think that's more of just like a symbolic kind of thing. I take it you're looking at the cover?
I'm loving I'm loving the art actually. It's
Isn't it
really compelling.
gorgeous?
Yeah.
Yeah, I friggin' love it. It's so good.
Jealous as hell, actually. I wonder
Yeah.
who did she talk about who her cover artist is at all?
I actually have the name somewhere of who the cover artist is, and I have to look it up. Are you interested?
Yeah.
Okay, I will try
I
to
always
find
I
it.
like talking to artists.
Yeah. And actually, that would be a really interesting interview, wouldn't it? Like their thought process behind how do you do covers? Like, how do you take what an author has in mind and make it visible?
I talked to a woman in Philadelphia who does a lot of comics and a lot of cover art,
Hmm.
and she basically summed it up as in authors are morons and should be quiet, and I'll draw whatever I want.
Wow. Ouch.
And I mean, no, it was she was not that harsh, but it was kind of like, she's gonna take whatever you're saying and put it down on paper, and once it's out on paper, you're either gonna appreciate it or you're not. I mean,
Right.
you really can't put too much emotional attachment on whether or not your skills match up with what the author is expecting, because it can turn into a muddled mess if you
Hmm.
have somebody just breathing down your neck. You've done this before, so you know.
Hmm.
You've worked with an artist to design covers for your books.
Yeah, I've worked with in a couple of different capacities, and so much of it depends on, I think, communication. Like, for instance, I did cover redesigns for my very first books I ever wrote, my Skateboards, Magic, and Shamrock series. And in that, my older sister is a really good graphic designer, so I had her do it. And even like us knowing each other so well, we had moments of like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah,
What do you mean when you say this?
right. I mean, this woman had been working with authors for a while, so she kind of just said, you could say your words, but once I get the image that I'm going to make, that's what I'm going to make.
Right.
We could adjust it from there, but I mean, you don't want to pay for that. You want to make sure you get it.
Yeah,
The
you want to be
conversation,
happy with it.
yeah, you want the communication to be down perfectly.
Yeah. And covers are hard because they've got to do so many jobs. They have to like entice readers to pick them
Yeah.
up and look at them. And then you have to like, make sure it kind of communicates the type of book. Because, like for instance, romance novels have a lot of them have like that same format on the
Mhm.
cover. So people look at it and go, that's a romance novel.
Do you physically collect books, or are you a Kindle person?
I do both. I like physical books a
Me
lot,
too.
but Kindle has some advantages that physical books just don't. Like I can, have my iPad read the Kindle book to me if I'm like playing video games and kind of just
Oh,
want to
I
listen
want that.
passively.
I don't have that. I use my phone for everything. I guess we have 1,000 Kindles flying around the house, but I never use them for anything but paperweights.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then.
Mhm.
What has been your favorite physical book so far this year that you've
Ooh,
held in your
okay.
hands? You go, whoa, I can't believe I bought this. It feels wonderful in my hands.
Let me see. I'm looking through my list. Ooh, have you seen the Barnes and Noble special editions of books, like the fancy,
Yeah, I
pretty
have.
ones?
They bother me because they're in cellophane and I want to touch them and look
Oh,
through
let's open
them.
them up. Yeah, no, I've gotten a couple
Very
of
keen for me.
those, and
Oh, really?
they're
Which
just
ones?
bloody gorgeous. Like they've got gilded, like the edge of the pages are gilded and stuff. They're so beautiful. Um,
Interesting. And they're modern classics too. Like they'll have the Star Wars trilogy, right? What
yeah,
did I
they
see?
do.
They'll have bound copies of Star Trek plays. I mean, the world that we're living in now is fantastic. What's considered literature should be considered literature. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But what did I see? Harlan, he just died recently. He's a science fiction author. Wrote The City on the Edge of Tomorrow.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about when I say that? The famous Star Trek episode,
Oh, vaguely.
City on the Edge of Tomorrow. I think that's what it's called. He wrote the script for it. He's absolutely famous for it.
Is
And
it
you can
Harlan Coben?
buy
Is that his name?
Harlan what?
Coben? Is that the last name? If I have that wrong, I might have it totally wrong. It's just a name that's floating in my brain for some reason.
The title of the thing is On the Edge of Tomorrow. City on the Edge
Mhm.
of Tomorrow, written by Harlan Ellison.
Ellison. Oh, okay.
Ellison.
Yeah.
But you can buy the screenplay now as a
Oh,
as a work of
interesting.
literature and flip through it. Or at least I saw that at Comic Con anyway.
That's cool.
God,
By the
man,
way, the cover designer for the Gabriel Davenport series by Beverly Lee that I mentioned, the group is called Design for Writers. So they were the ones who did that cover, and I've seen other covers they've done, and they're magnificent.
designed for writers.
Yep,
Let me
Design
see.
for Writers.
Oh, it's it's a business.
Yeah, it looks like that's what they do. Like that's their whole thing is they do cover design.
That's fascinating. So you're not working with, they do book designs too. So they're basically just working with indie authors too, right? I mean, you wouldn't necessarily be traditional going through them. It wants me to sign up.
Yeah, you can sign up for the newsletter and stuff. But like I said, I know several people who have worked with them, and all of their covers look beautiful.
I mean, all that stuff is worrisome, right? I mean, in the writing process, you could write something that you think is fantastic, and then a year come back and go, "Bleh." You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean? And if you have somebody else kind of buy your thing, take it from you, and then mess with it, then you're like, okay, whatever. You gave me money, I'm all right. But if you do, you mess it up yourself. Like I just think I published my first novel on Amazon, and I just felt dumb. I wish I had known more. Wish I had done something better. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's kind of the curse of growing, though. Like you're always going to look back at stuff that you did previously and go, "Oh, these are all the things I could have done better." Like as you
Yeah.
grow, that's just going to happen.
You have a
So,
breadcrumb trail of your amateurness.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
we all start out like that, though, I think.
Right. Yeah, it's very true.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily because I mean, how many books does I have some of the authors up? Like Jennifer Rainey has a bunch of books that she has published on Amazon right now.
Mhm.
I wonder she feels. I wonder how she feels about them. I mean, you have a bunch of books published on Amazon right now. How do you feel about yours?
I mean, I do like especially the first two, like my book babies, the Skateboards, Magic, and Shamrock series. That's like my fantasy adventure series, not the steampunk one. It's weird. Like I am proud of them and I love them, but I also like you said, like I look at them and I go, oh man, if I could redo this, like I would do this differently and this and this and this. But there's another podcaster. The podcast is called Productivity Alchemy, and the host of that has a really good bit of advice, which is perfection is the enemy of done. Like at some point you have to say it's done. I'm not going to like some of this stuff one day, but it is done and I'm calling it.
That's my theory, right? I mean, you have a set number of months to work on a project, and once the project is done, you send it to somebody and they decide whether or not they want to give you money for it. But you've got to continue working on other projects, so you can't go back to that project very easily. It
Yeah.
takes a big scheduling conflict to say, all right, that novel that I wrote, I'm going to devote the next 6 months to really working on it hardcore.
Yeah.
How long do you spend on a novel?
I usually spend about 8 months
8 months.
on one.
And how long does it take you to get a first draft?
Kind of depends. Like I just finished a first draft last month. My goal was to get it done before the new year, and I did. I was really happy. And it took me about 2 solid months of like hardcore, just writing my tail off to get it done.
And the next 6 months is polishing
Exactly. Like it's
every day.
marinating now, and then I'll do an edit. It'll go to my first reader, who's my dad, because he reads everything I write and like is
Oh,
very
that's cool.
familiar with the genre. And then I'll edit it again, and then it'll go to my editor, and all the stuff.
And that's an 8 month period of time.
Yep, give or take.
Are you working on anything now also while you have that thing in its 6 months period of what it's doing, simmering? Do you have something else that you're pushing out a first draft on? Yeah.
I got accepted into an anthology for short stories, and so I wrote a retelling of the Snow Queen because they're all fantasy retelling, or I mean fairy tale retellings.
Oh, I saw that anthology. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm excited. It's going to be like my first traditional publishing kind of thing.
Feels good, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. But yeah, so I'll actually just got the final edits back from my editor on that today. So I'll look at that after we finish our interview and stuff, and see what she said there. Yeah. And so I'm going to be working on that. I'm working on the last in my Skateboards, Magic, and Shamrock series because I never closed it out when I started the Broken Gear series. So it's time I finish that. Like there are still some things to get wrapped up. So I want to get that done and get that out. Hopefully my new goal is to put out 2 books a year, but that might be a little ambitious.
That's
but I'm
going
to try.
Yeah. I want one long work a year. One thing over 20,000 words. I'm happy.
There you go.
But I have a novel I need to work on. It needs another 15,000 words. But I have a publisher I want to send it to. I think that might be perfect for it.
Yeah.
But finding the time to say, I'm going to go back there and actually do the right thing with it is hard. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's really difficult. I love short fiction.
Mhm.
It really feels good to say, I just finished a piece today. I sent it off to somebody to consider, and I was on it for 4 weeks. You know what I mean? It's not a long
Mhm.
time to write 9,000 words or whatever it ended up being.
Yeah.
I just enjoy that. Now I'm on to the next story, a 3,000 word story that I'm going to send away by the end of the week.
Mhm.
So it's like I constantly have a project
That's
that I'm
kinda
working
great
on.
though, because like, you have that closure and it's, you're completing cycles.
Yep. And if I want to rewrite one of those stories, it's not going to take 6 months. It's going to take a week.
Exactly.
But I do want novels out there, though. I
Mhm.
have novels completed. I just get into that polishing phase. It's
Have
hard.
you considered this, and I feel like this is a really big question for writers, like, have you thought about the whole agent route? Like, getting a literary agent and then they, sell it to publishers for you?
I am thinking hardcore about that.
Mhm.
And one, it helps
Yeah.
open doors. And I think it was put in perspective when somebody said their list. I mean, I was always listening to these words, the list. And a list is people that they know who will read something
Mhm.
in a place to say yes or no.
Mhm.
And recently I submitted to tour.
Mhm.
I was in a queue of
I
thousands
see
and
their
thousands of
novella
people.
one, right? They open up in July, I think?
They
Was that
did. They opened up in July.
Yeah, so you got that in there, cool.
Got that in there. Sat in the queue forever, and then I got a form letter of rejection.
Oh, man, I'm
And they
sorry.
come back. Did they read it? How far did they get? What was wrong with it? If
Right.
I had an agent, would they have been able to have a conversation with somebody on their list to find out what I could have done differently with that story to make it profitable? You know
That's
what
a
I
good
mean?
question.
Right? And I don't know if an agent would have helped me with that because
I
some
mean,
some
I would hope
publishers
so.
don't care. Like it didn't matter if I had an agent to submit the tour, and tour is kind of a wet dream, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah,
It's
tour's
kind of
like that's like my dream. Like, if I ever get
right.
published with
Mine
tour,
too.
I'm like, "I'm done. I'm good. I have made
Right?
it."
That's exactly how I feel. If I have a tour label on a spine of one of my books, I'm content the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So they didn't need me to have an agent.
Mhm.
Any of these other places that I come across that will pay me money for fiction, I didn't need an agent for them either. So will it make it? I don't have an agent, and the people that
Mhm.
do seem to luck into it. One
Yeah.
person that I talked to, you can go back and listen to the podcast that I did with her. Her last name is Lam or Lim.
Is she the one who, like, did the Twitter mod thing, and, like, she
Yeah,
got her agent that she wanted through the little Twitter, because she had, like, what, 1 or 2 lines in there, and she got it, and then she got the publisher she wanted too?
she got a fixed six-figure deal, and I'm not going to say her book doesn't sound interesting. It does. I want to read it.
Mhm.
It's about a chef and
Yeah.
magic. So I'm
I
like,
remember
all
hearing this
right,
episode.
I'm interested right away. It's like
Mhm.
just chef magic. All right, give me the book. So it makes sense that she got an agent, kind of, but
Mhm.
it was a game, like a social media game that she got her agent off of.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Where's the
remember I remember
balance?
hearing that, and she, like, had her plan. She's like, "This is who I want, and this is the publisher I want," and yeah, she went for it, and she did it.
But that was her eighth novel.
Yes, she wrote a ton before that, and I think that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's amazing, right? It's stick to
Mhm.
itiveness, and she didn't publish any of those on her own, and she was just waiting for this Twitter game.
Mhm.
And she's not the only one. I've talked to a few other people also.
Mhm.
There was a guy. Oh man, I can't remember his name. The Gray Bastards is his book. It's coming out after the new year. He also won one of those Twitter games
Mhm.
with Mark Lawrence.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of things about them, and they sound really interesting. I need to, like, get my crap together though, like, if I want to do that, like, know who to whom I wanna pitch, and, like, know exactly how I wanna pitch. I'm not
Yeah,
there.
isn't that true? And to answer the question, I've been looking at it, and I have no discernible answers as to how to actually address any of those particular tweets to people. You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
want to be talked to. They want to have an engagement with you as the author. I'm
Mhm.
talking about the agent themselves. They don't want just random query letters showing up. I've
Right.
got book, please buy, or please find buyer for it.
Mhm.
They want to know you and what you're doing and what you're capable of. But who the hell are they and where are they? And where are these dumb Twitter games and how do you actually win it? Do you have answers? It sounds
I
like
mean,
you're
I have
interested.
a few. I've looked into this, and it's like I said, it's something I want to eventually do. I'm just not there right now. Like, one really good piece of advice that I've heard is look at the books that you enjoy and are a lot like the book that you want to sell, and look who that person's agent is in the acknowledgments. Like usually they'll be like, thank you to my agent, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And then you can, Google that agent's name and find where they're at, and then get their instructions, so to speak, for querying them. There's also, what is that site called? Manuscript something. Let me look it up. I write down loads of notes and then I keep them in like 70 different places.
Right. That's also, it's such a discovery as well. And you're never even gonna know how to find what you're looking for until you are where you're at. Like, oh shit, I discovered it. What did I discover? I need to tell everybody, and you'll find it.
Manuscript wish list is the website. So you can go on there and you can find agents. You can also look up agents. Like if someone's come to you and said, oh, hey, I'm interested in your book, I'm an agent. You can like look them up on there and see if anyone's had any issues or complaints. So manuscript wish list is a good way to do that. And you can, I think that also has a querying tool, but I'm not familiar with it, so I can't really speak to it.
Do you want an agent as an indie author? Do you think that would be beneficial for you?
Eventually, I want to be hybrid. And I've got a novel that I wrote like 10 plus years ago, which I've started going back through and doing huge edits. Like I put in like a new romantic side storyline and stuff, like did a bunch of changes to it. I think I want to try and traditionally publish that one and, do the agent route and that whole 9 yards thing. But it's not there yet. It's not ready. And I haven't, like, I need to put together my list of people I'm interested in and, do all the legwork beforehand that's required for that. So that is a goal of mine. But as to when, it might be a goal for next year, if I'm honest, because I've made my goals for this year and that's not on there yet. So it might be a goal for next year.
No, it's very interesting, right? Because you're constantly playing around with the idea of what to do next. Mm-hmm. You're writing a story, you're writing a series, right? You just finished a book in your series. Is there another book in your series coming?
Yes, because my Growing Years universe, like I have a ton of different story ideas. There's a character by the name of Rook in there. He's a crime lord, and I will eventually write a book where he kind of showing like how he got to where he is now. So I'll have that. There's a set of twins in there. I want to write their story. So yeah, I've got a bunch of ideas for that universe. They may not be like in a series. It might be
your indie universe. Yeah,
exactly. And I kind of look at it like the Marvel universe. Like, you have your storylines, like you have like the Avenger storyline, for instance. And then, you've got your little one-offs like with Thor or Captain America or what have you. So that's kind of how I see that. And I'm going to have situations like that. Like the book I just finished is part of my character Lenore's big story arc. And that's like self-contained, but Raven's Cry is like a standalone prequel. So that one you can read at any point in the series.
And going hybrid, because the only person I know who's hybrid is the guy who did what's his name? Laurie? No. You know what I'm talking about? He lives in a boat now.
Are you talking about Dr. House?
I think so. God, I can't remember his name. Does not matter. We're going to change direction completely.
Okay.
So we're nearing an hour. I think we've actually reached an hour.
Oh, wow, that went by fast.
Yeah, man. I like talking to you. You're a lot of fun. You have a lot of good thoughts, and
so are you.
Your brain moves fast, which is always cool. What? You have 50 books on your list.
Yes.
What books did you want to read that you didn't?
Ooh, that's a good one. A lot of series. Like I am really bad about getting into a series and then moving on because I get excited about something else. So
I don't know anything about that.
Right. And you're hundreds of books that you're in the middle of.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I really want to finish
list.
out.
I really want to go over this list with you, but I think it would just be incredibly boring. It just goes on forever and ever and ever. It's really not that long. I actually read most of these books. It's not bad. Helter Skelter, have you read that?
I have not.
Have you read The Operator by Robert O'Neill? That's the guy that killed Osama bin Laden. I couldn't put that.
No, I haven't.
It's horribly written. I mean, it's
Do you read very many biographies?
I love biographies.
Do you? I did not know this.
Yeah, I like science books too. I only read science books and biographies. It seems like every single time I try to pick up a fantasy book, I cannot get into it. I get
Interesting.
so incredibly bored. I just cannot get into it. But when I do, I enjoy the hell out of them and I can't put them down. But
Right.
it takes like 50 pages though before I get to that point. And by 10 pages, I'm already looking for another book.
Interesting.
This did not last long enough for me to have to read it someplace other than the bathroom. I need to find another book.
You need to find a hiding place
For reading?
for reading. Yeah, somewhere like the kids can't reach you, and you just like climb up there like Gollum and hide and read.
Right. I have a cave downstairs in the basement that I can call my own. Finding
Nice.
time to read is not a problem. It's just like you've given me 5 different authors I'm gonna have to check out. I'm constantly
Oh.
curious who to talk to, right? I mean, who to
Mhm.
get on the podcast, what are people doing? I have to see, and I'll check out all their books, and that'll be 5 other distractions from, what do I if I had wanted to read something right now, I'd finish the Michael Jordan biography that I'm reading.
Very cool.
It's actually really fascinating. It went through a really in-depth history of his forefathers, from his great
Mhm.
great grandparents on to his father. It's like really nice looking at North Carolina through like a African American spectrum.
Right.
Um,
And I
and
mean,
that's
that
what
dude, he's golly Pete. Like I'm not a sports fan, but I know about how what was it during those playoffs one year? He had the flu and he like still played, and just like, oh my gosh, dude, well done.
it's not even close to the worst thing. When he was a kid, his
Mhm.
father was molesting his older sister,
Oh dear.
and his sister had some kind of, accused the father publicly on the
Hmm.
streets. And the mother and they all got together and there was almost murder happening. And this
Oh
is
my
young
goodness.
Michael Jordan, 9 years old, potentially realizing that his father is a horrible, horrible monster.
Hmm.
First storm that he's got to rectify, right? His
Yeah.
male role model is disgusting. Does he say, I want to be like that person, or does he want to be a different person? Because he didn't go into
Right.
the Air Force, he became a multimillionaire, world famous athlete. The flu, the gambling thing that potentially knocked him out of his career for a year and a half. I mean, that guy has an incredible, interesting path that
That is
won't
very
even could
interesting.
even hope to follow. But I'm
Hmm.
never going to finish reading that book. I'm like 75 pages into it, and I've got like
Oh
2 Buzz
man.
Aldrin books I want to read.
Hmm.
From a Certain Point of View is a collection of short fiction. Short fiction,
That one I
might
own. I haven't read it, but I own us from a certain point of view.
I only bought it because of Will Wheaton.
Ah, Will Wheaton, love that dude.
Me too. Yeah, yeah. He has a big fan base. I wonder if it's because he doesn't do anything. He does barely anything, and he still maintains like this gigantic fanatic following.
It's I don't know. That's a really good question because he's done some stuff on Big Bang,
Mhm.
but he also just I think he has some really good things to say. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
that him being Wesley Crusher made a difference and whatnot, but
it's not just Wesley
he's one
Crusher
of the few
anymore,
people
though.
I follow on Twitter, and I really like his stuff.
I wish he was on Twitter more. It's not even just Wesley Crusher. It's the guy from the Guild now. It's the
Oh
guy
yeah, he
from
was in
Eureka
that.
now.
That's right.
He has another kind of show that he's on now, to the Big Bang Theory. I mean, the cultural person he's become as an actor is very
Mhm.
interesting because he's
Yeah.
Will Wheaton. He
Mhm.
plays Will Wheaton. He plays Will Crusher. I
He
mean,
is King Geek.
he's King Geek. It's absolutely cool.
I love it.
Um, yeah, man. So no science fiction, just steampunk and fantasy.
I'm looking through here. I'm looking for science
Favorite
fiction.
science fiction book?
Although I kind of put steampunk in science fiction, but I'm looking for like some hardcore. Oh, where is it? What's the name of it? Chasing Shadows.
Chasing
Chasing Shadows,
Shadows.
hardcore science fiction, by K.N. Salustro. That's another series that I need to finish out because again, I get into these
But we're
series and
gonna
I don't.
we're
But
gonna
yeah,
get
it's like
into a fight though in a
very Star
second. I have a
Trek.
feeling.
Sorry.
What's the definition of science fiction?
Oh, dude, do we have that
Right?
much time? Like,
I don't think we do. I think we're already gone 11 minutes past what you've allocated for this discussion.
oh, I'm
I
I'm
think
good.
we should have a
It's late.
conversation about what constitutes science fantasy and what constitutes science fiction.
That would be an entire podcast just unto itself. It's like, where's that line? What's the
Where's that line?
differentiating like factors?
Because there is one. I mean, it's not even fuzzy. You have to have discernible technological capabilities to have it be hardcore science fiction, right?
Yes.
Everything has to be backed up by engineering. If there's any kind of made up nonsense,
Hmm.
that makes it fantasy.
Yeah.
And in
You
that
eject the
definition,
plasma core and that fixes the black hole for some reason.
exactly.
Yeah.
That makes Star Trek fantasy.
Hmm.
Like,
But yeah,
remove
I did
that.
read Chasing Shadows by K.N. Salustro, and that is hardcore sci-fi, starships and space
Oh,
and different planets and stuff, and it was very good.
Chasing Shadows. I'm gonna look that up too. And anything else?
Let's see here. Like I said, just I'm looking for hardcore sci-fi now that I read. Let's see here.
If you like science books, and
Mhm.
this is an anthropology book, it's called Homo Deus. It's about humans and what will potentially become from
Really?
Homo sapiens on to what the next thing is. There, this gentleman is calling us Homo Deus, and it's really fascinating because we don't go to war anymore, and we eat really bad food, and we have high
Mhm.
triglycerides, and we don't have to have heightened senses anymore. I mean, what is our future going to be like as a species? I mean, what is important
That's a
to
good
us?
question.
And that's what he's writing about in this book. I didn't finish it, but it's incredibly interesting.
I wonder too, I've heard some people say like once we get out into space and we start colonizing space, like the different gravity conditions may have an effect on human beings and whatnot. And I don't know how much an effect it's really going to have. And I kind of feel like people don't really know and we
Oh,
won't until we get there. But
I
yeah.
see Buzz Aldrin reaching 90 years old. He was in
Hmm.
space a really long time. I see, what's his name? Kelly, the guy who spent almost a year in space, recovering
Yes.
immediately and having no issues. He has cataracts. I mean, the radiation definitely increases. I like to play around with the idea that we're made to be in space.
Do
That
you? That's interesting.
within a few generations of being spaceborne, it won't even be an issue. I mean, just be. I mean, we're like those stress balls. You know, you
Hmm.
squeeze in your hand, it just forms to whatever happens. That's kind of what we do. We need
Interesting.
gills, we have gills. We need legs, we have legs. We need wings, we have wings. And we have all the physical materials necessary to make all these things happen.
Hmm.
Really, if you think about it, look at a skeleton of a bird, compare it to a human. I mean, it could happen given a million whatever years.
Yeah. So you think this would be like a eventual evolutionary change, and not like an X-Men radiation sudden change kind of thing?
I think it's already been. I think that we're already from space. I mean, we live in space, right? So I think the seed that caused us came from something, and potentially, maybe it was pushed off by a civilization very far away, so that the universe could be filled with life. I mean, I don't know.
No
The
telling.
really interesting thing to me that I kind of loved playing around with this year is the idea that where we are in the universe is in the center of an observable sphere. And beyond that, we have no clue. It could be anything. We don't even know what
Like a
the freaking
crystal
Big
ball?
Bang is.
People can look down into the crystal ball kind of thing?
It could be, I mean, honestly, if you believe what Einstein wrote, which I didn't read, I'm just theorizing that he wrote about relativity being a whole bunch of different realities, right? Anything's possible.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's one of those things where I would love to have, the TARDIS and be able to travel around and just be like, all right, let's take a look at the beginning of the universe. Let's see how this all played out, you know?
But don't you already have a TARDIS, though? Your
I mean, I
imagination can
have a
put you
TARDIS
anywhere you want.
teapot.
Do you really?
I
That
do. I
seems
have a
awkward.
TARDIS teapot.
That seems awkward. Does it pour well? Is it just a square?
It is a square, so like mixing is a little bit like if you're putting in honey and stuff, like mixing is a little difficult, but it's fine. It's fun.
Does it
And it has a
functional or
matching, I'm sorry?
did you use it?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it has
Yeah.
a matching TARDIS tea strainer. You put the loose leaf tea in and whatnot, so it's kind of like TARDIS Inception, where the TARDIS is inside the TARDIS.
How is your best friend from England?
How is she?
Yeah. How'd that work
I
out?
mean, she's fine. Oh well, I studied in at the University of East Anglia in Norwich for a semester, and so like we were all kind of crammed together in this. It was literally condemned. Like they had plans to tear down the building after that year, so like they didn't bother to fix anything, and it was terrible. And it was a great bonding experience. So we were on the same hall, and we met there. And I was only there for 3 months, but like we just became best friends and whatnot, and we've kept in touch since then. So yeah, and we travel back and forth to see each other. Every year-ish or so. So yeah, and she was here in October, spent 3 weeks here. So yeah, it's good.
That's cool. I've never been
Mhm.
to England. I'd like to go.
It's gorgeous. There's so many things to see. I mean, London is way cool and there's a ton of stuff there, but
Oh, totally.
there's equally cool stuff like out in the countryside.
I hear Stonehenge has a fence around it.
Yes, it does. I mean,
That's
there's special passes you can buy where I think it's either before or after hours. You can like go go inside it, but like you're not allowed to touch the stones. Like they're real funny about that.
I hear there's a path that you could take. It's like a mile trek through the woods to get
Mhm.
to it, so you don't have to pay the shuttle price.
Oh, I didn't know
It's
that.
I hear there's like a horrible tourist thing built up around it. It's terribly disappointing.
I mean, there is because when I saw it, and there were a ton of people.
Was it worth it? What'd you think when you saw it? Was it like, oh, there it is, or oh, what the hell did I spend all this money for?
It was very cool. I didn't get the pass to like go up close, which I think would have been even cooler, because from afar, to be honest, it kind of looks like it's made from styrofoam, which it's obviously not, but it
No,
kind of looks like
yeah.
it.
It's another one of those fantastic things, right, that nobody really knows. I mean, you could say it's a calendar, or you could say it's like an altar for sacrifice, and they've found bones and stuff over there, and it's really, we're so interesting as a
I
species.
know. Like, I love the different ideas and theories for what Stonehenge could have been.
Because there's a dude, right, that lived there that said, you know what, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to grab those big fucking rocks and we're going to bring them all the way over here and we're going to set them up in this weird configuration. Somebody said that to these people. And those people said, okay, dude, you got our vote. Let's go do that. I feel like they have
Well,
their own
maybe
Donald Trump.
he was King Overlord and said, "You're going to do this or you die." Like, it might have been that too.
Yeah, or I'll bring the frost back or something crazy.
Yeah, because they're much older than I think people think. I think people think that they're just like just before maybe the medieval period or something. I have a book
No,
on this
I
upstairs
thought
that we got
5,000
from
years.
Stonehenge. They're very old, like
How,
older than I think people realize.
not older than 5,000?
I have to remember, where's 5,000? 5,000 is what, like,
Negative 3,000.
yeah. Oh gosh, I'm bad with the timelines. I don't remember exactly. Like I said, I've got a book on it upstairs. But yeah, super duper old. Like, not just medieval period old, but like super old.
Are you familiar with Outlander?
I am familiar with it. I've not seen it.
You didn't read the books of it, obviously,
No.
either. Oh man, that's a book that's been sitting on my Kindle half finished, the latest one in that series.
Mm-hmm.
They consider that historical romance, but it's really about a woman who falls back through time
Yeah.
through stones like those. Like I picture them being like Stonehenge
Yeah.
type stones. I mean, that's just ancient stuff, right? I mean, we have
Yeah.
not been on this planet for very long.
Not really.
Genetics came from someplace. I mean, we boiled up from an embiotic fluid. I mean, it's just crazy magic happening here.
It is super cool. I love the different like ideas of what was that like? When did that get there and how and all that stuff.
Right? Where are we going? What's happening with us? Are we gonna? I mean, they say climate change, right? That horrible thing that's gonna happen.
Yep.
We'll adjust to that too. I mean, there'll be an animal out there that'll live, whether it has this stupid disease called consciousness, which in my opinion might not be the best thing anyway. I mean, I don't really think knowing your own demise is coming is a great thing,
I
which I
mean,
believe.
it definitely is a little bit stress making, but
A little bit. And I love how humans like to thrust each other into that stress too. Like, I'm going to take that demise and give it to you right now.
Mhm.
Go to war. I'm going to drive crazy around you. Let's jump out of helicopters or whatever. It's just dumb.
I think like anything, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's got some really great advantages and some really awful disadvantages. Like free will, like yay free will, but also like, oh, it does some really awful stuff.
Do we have free will? I mean, do we?
Oh, that's a whole other conversation.
Because you know what? Did
Oh,
you have any control over not being on this podcast today? Because I saw you. You were docilely sitting in the corner of your booth, not even paying attention to anything
I
other
was
than your
stuffing my
food,
face. I just wanted to eat
salad.
lunch.
Even I had a conversation with the non-writer dude before I even looked at you.
Mhm.
I was a misogynist. I was a complete chauvinist. Hey, dude, how about this book you wrote? He's like, it's not mine, it's hers. I mean, chaos, right? Complete chaos. It could have totally gone a different way. I could totally look the other way instead of that way. You know,
I have heard some people talk about, there's this fancy word for it of like, because your brain is wired the way it is, could you have made any other choice than the one you made because of the way you're wired? And these are interesting thoughts.
Did you construct your booth at BookCon last year to make my brain go?
I mean, I try to get
pull
as
me
many people in
through
there as possible. So
right? But you did though at the same time, for whatever
Mhm,
reason, whether or not I'm just interested in talking to somebody and you have a friendly face,
mhm.
that could have been why. But for whatever reason, it did draw me in there, right? I mean, you influenced chaos in a way. If my brain is wired to be pleasured by whatever that was, you did
I have a very pretty booth setup, so I mean, I don't
it.
blame you.
So you're going to Dragon Con,
I'm
and that is
hoping
not
to get
until
accepted. I have to apply, and then they'll tell me whether or not I can come and be a vendor.
how that's expensive.
It
Not
is. It
cheap.
is pretty expensive. It's cheaper than New York, though.
I talked to a guy here. He was a lawyer. He had a
Hmm.
booth. He was hawking a comic book, and I don't like to make fun of people, but he was a lawyer hawking a comic book, if that says anything.
Hmm.
So he
Did
bought
you
a
did you
booth.
read it? Do you know if it's any
I
good?
looked through it. He had it out to look through, and I didn't really read the words of the comic book, but I was so distracted by the art. It just was not.
Was not what you look for
I
in
would
a
not
comic
want to
book?
put that out and say buy this at Comic-Con. I don't think.
I wonder.
And he had money to buy a booth. I mean, I was like, dude. I mean, that's crazy that you had this kind of resource to put on this comic book.
But there is something admirable. I mean, in the fact that he's trying and he's doing it. And that's the other thing, is art is so subjective. Like, do you know Jonan Vasquez, I think is how you pronounce his name? He
I
has
don't
a very distinct style. He did Invader Zim, and I think he did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac as well.
It just seemed rushed. You know what I mean? I just felt bad for him. It's like, what are you going to say?
Some people might dig it, though. They might like that particular style.
And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about just not knowing and calling it quits on a project and starting something else.
Yeah.
Continuing on with your creative process, whatever it's going to be. So you want to be hybrid published on the book series that you currently are working on. You do not want to start something new.
No, I do actually. What I'm hoping to eventually peddle to traditional publishers is in a completely different universe, completely different kind of story and whatnot. Just because Broken Gears is like my indie baby. I love my Broken Gear series and being able to have freedom with that. And this other one, I also love it, but it's a whole different world and different characters and stuff. So I don't have that attachment with it yet. And I think it could be, I feel like it's different from what's out there currently. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So you just finished a book. It's in the rewrite process. What can we expect from you going forward?
So I hope to be putting out that book all finished and whatnot come maybe like July or August. I'm not 100% sure on when it's going to come out, but maybe somewhere around there.
And the anthology? When is
the
that
anthology comes out on May 4th, which I'm very excited for. And actually, I will be at a show when that releases in Austin, Texas. It's Austin Bookstars. And so that'll be out. And also, one thing about that anthology that I would really encourage people to look into it doesn't benefit any of the writers. Like, we don't make any money off of it. It benefits the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so all the proceeds from that anthology, which is called Twisted Fates, will go towards that organization and supporting it.
Are you typically a YA author? You're not, are you?
I am, definitely.
You are? Oh, okay. I always considered you an adult author.
I mean, some of the stuff can kind of verge into new adult, but it's still YA.
It's fudgy, right? I mean, as long as you're writing a good story, adults will gravitate to you anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
What
about you? What can we expect from you in the next year?
Oh man, what am I doing this year? I got a piece that's probably going to be coming out soon. I just wrote it, finished it today and sent it out. I'd like to see that being published. I'm working on novelettes and stuff. I have no clue. I really need to work on this novel. I need to get it polished and decide what I'm going to do with it. It's been on my desk for over 2 years now. So I'm like, what the hell is this thing? It's not done. It's a little bit shorter than even publishers will look at. It's 60,000 as opposed to 80.
Right.
But I want to write another novel. I want to write about this priest that wants to travel to Mars. I really want to write that novel. I want to see if that one's easier and feels better. You know what I mean?
That's hard. Do you feel like the one that's not quite up to length, do you feel like it has potential?
I think I'm poisoned by being its creator. You know what I mean? I can't tell if it's good or not. I can't tell if it has bones or not.
Has anyone done any alpha reads on it?
My wife did, and I had Jill Perazzi look at it too. If you listen to the podcast, she's like a regular guest.
Oh, cool.
So I've had eyes on it. So it's had readers. So I have ideas. I know how to make it thicker. I know where it needs to be built up at. But I always get distracted by these short stories.
Yeah.
Because
short stories are really like what do you enjoy?
Yeah, they're fun because they're over quick and you could start something else. I mean, it's like how I read, right? I'm constantly looking for different information. I want new stuff. I want to be tickled. I like tickles. I like to write tickles. I love the short 300 to 500 word pieces. I love when they portray a lot of stuff and you get a lot out of it. And I think, right now people like bits and pieces. I don't know. What is your opinion? Do you think people want big works of 100,000 words, or are they looking for more bite-sized pieces of literature that does the same thing, or can it even do the same thing?
I think, again, it just depends on the reader. Like, I go back and forth. Like, if I just want to finish something, I love a good little short piece. But sometimes I just want to get into like a really good book, even if it's super long, and just like be immersed in that. So I think it just depends on the reader. Like you have to identify like, this is what I have to offer.
Yeah.
This is where those readers are. And like, I mean, for instance, all of your short fiction, like literary magazines and whatnot, which I'm sure you probably already are submitting to them and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Like,
They'll pay for it. I mean, they'll buy it.
exactly.
They'll give you money and make you feel good about yourself. And
Hmm.
they have a large audience of people that'll read it and engage with it potentially, or engage with you because of it. I
Hmm.
mean, it starts people's careers, right? John Scalzi is one of those people that come from that type of market.
Right.
Or, but then you have people like Andy Weir that come from a market like yours,
Hmm.
which is completely community focused. And the community found him. He
Yeah.
didn't do any marketing. He didn't go on Twitter and say, "Hey guys, I got a story out."
Right.
Somehow Andy Weir had an audience because Andy Weir was a likable dude and he wrote likable fiction.
Yeah.
I mentioned him every single podcast.
He's a cool guy. He definitely is. And he's done a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, I think it just depends on like where your priorities lie. Like what's like number one priority for you to accomplish this year? And then, you take the steps to make that happen. And then, okay, priority number two, this one. And it's a matter of breaking those down and making some tough choices.
I have a collection of 3 stories that
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see out. It's like 10,000 words right now. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
see it 20,000. I'd like to publish that this year.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see that out there. It's about a black hole being molested and causing a time paradox.
Oh, wow.
I would love to see that published this year. It's done. I just have to mess with it. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
indie publish it on Amazon. Um, and I have the Don Quixote story that I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Just I really want to put more stuff on my Amazon page and give people an opportunity to interact with my words
Mm-hmm.
in a professional way.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
my 2019. I don't know
and it's
beyond that.
Amazon might not be the only place. Like if you don't go, because they have their Kindle Unlimited program, where if you don't sign up for that, you can still put your stuff up and not sign up for that. You can go wide, and like you could have it up on Smashwords, you could have it up even on WordPress, but that would mean that you are giving it away for free. So that's a whole other decision. But yeah, I mean, you could have it on multiple different platforms.
Well, I think that's profitable. I think that's a good way to go, right? Putting stuff on your WordPress,
Mm-hmm.
as much content as you possibly can.
Yeah, the only thing is like once it's up on WordPress, like it's been published,
It's
like
done,
first
yeah.
publishing rights are gone. So
It's gone. You can't publish it anymore after that. But
I mean, some
yeah,
places might take a second, like to take secondary rights, but a lot of places want at least temporary first rights
I feel like
publishing.
that could come, right? I mean, you don't necessarily, you could publish it on your site
Mm-hmm.
for people to read and engage with because they love content.
Mm-hmm.
And if later on down the road you do make something popular happen, that stuff might get published.
Mm-hmm. Or you could
That's a
just
good
do
call.
snippets. Like you could do like the first 100 words of the story on your site, and then if you want to read the rest, go to these places or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have the 3 long works that I have right now that I'm proud of on
Mm-hmm.
there. They obviously could be continued to work on. But again, back to our original statement of give up or die or write something new.
Right.
um,
You got to make some hard
yeah,
decisions.
do you put them on there? Do you just get rid of them? Do you just publish them and say, here, enjoy these books? What do you think? Because can't expect people to buy unknown authors' work, right? And if you give it away for free, if you give it all away for free,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you'll make. It's very confusing. I've been talking to people like yourself for almost a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and my opinion is it's scary to do what you did,
Oh, it's
right? I mean,
terrifying. It's so scary.
yeah. So, I mean, you limit yourself to what you know already. You have
Mm-hmm.
1,000 Facebook friends. You have 1,000 Twitter followers. You have 1,000 people that follow your WordPress blog. Some of them maybe duplicate. So maybe you have 3,000 people that you could sell your work to.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially you could make $10,000
Maybe.
on a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be fantastic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
They
And
don't buy anything.
I think persistence is the real key, though. I think a lot of people have this idea that you just throw something up on Amazon and ta-da, my work is done. When like no, it's a whole job. Like you have to market and interact with people and network, and you have to just keep going.
Looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part. I mean, where do you find those places to market? I guess we could talk about that too eventually. I mean, I really appreciate the time you've spent with me already.
Oh, totally.
I don't want to keep you much longer. We could probably talk all day.
I'm sure we could.
I imagine we probably could make our significant others very mad with the amount of time that we could spend talking with each other or hanging out. So I know.
Hanging out with my friend Bryan. What?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Everything's cool. I want to get you back on. I have a lot of different subjects I want to have the conversation with you about.
Absolutely.
I think I'm going to publish this one sooner than later. I have messed myself up. I have so many episodes to get through, but I don't want to keep people hanging when I have them on. And being that this is such a New Year-esque type of conversation, I'll probably get you out before the end of next week.
Oh, wow. That is fast.
So I'll push you out that way. Don't tell anybody. Okay. I'm joking. Who would you tell? Did you want to leave on any particular note? I mean,
well, I guess the only other thing is I do have all of my live events listed on my website, which is wordsbydana.com. And like I said, that Austin Bookstars event in May is going to have that anthology, which benefits the Make-A-Wish Foundation. If you're in that area, I encourage you guys to come out and see that. It's going to be a very cool event. And then, like I said,
can you pre-order it now at all?
You cannot pre-order it yet, unfortunately. Okay. But as soon as it is available, I will tell the whole world.
Cool.
And then also, like I said, the rest of my events are on there, and I'm constantly updating it. So you can go on to wordsbydana.com and see if I'll be in your area at any point, because I'm going to Chicago later on this year. I'll be in a bunch of different places.